The champagne cork hit my crystal chandelier with enough force to leave a mark. I didn't flinch. Instead, I watched from the kitchen doorway as Derek, my husband of 6 years, wrapped his arms around a woman who definitely wasn't me, their laughter bouncing off the exposed brick walls of what he believed was his loft. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. To new beginnings, Derek announced, raising his glass toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Portland. The woman, blonde, younger, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, clinked her glass against his. And to old endings, she purred, her eyes scanning the industrial chic space with obvious appreciation. This place is incredible, Derek. I can't wait until it's just ours. I stirred my coffee slowly, the silver spoon making soft clinking sounds against the ceramic. They hadn't noticed me yet. The open concept layout that Architectural Digest had featured 2 years ago suddenly felt like a theater, and I had front row seats to my own betrayal. Soon, baby, Derek promised, pulling her closer. The divorce papers are filed. She'll be out within the month. Maybe sooner if I can convince her to take the settlement. What settlement? The woman, I'd later learn her name was Amber, laughed. You said she came into the marriage with nothing. What does she expect to get? Derek's smile was the same one he'd used when we first met at that gallery opening, back when I was carefully hidden behind layers of trusts and LLCs, back when I was still testing whether anyone could love me for something other than my portfolio. Exactly nothing, he said. She was a receptionist when I met her, still working the same dead-end job at that boutique law firm. This place, everything in it, it's all mine. Built my consulting business from the ground up. She was just along for the ride. I took a sip of coffee, letting the bitter taste ground me. The consulting business he'd built from the ground up had been launched with a $250,000 loan he didn't know came from me, funneled through a friend's investment firm. The office space he leased at below market rates? Mine. The prestigious clients who'd mysteriously started calling him 3 months after our wedding? Referred through my network, though he'd never know it, and this loft, all 3,000 square feet of converted warehouse space in the Pearl District, with its original timber beams and custom Italian kitchen, had been in my name since before Portland's real estate boom, purchased through one of my holding companies when Derek was still in graduate school. God, I can't believe you stuck it out this long, Amber was saying now, running her fingers along the marble countertop of the kitchen island. My kitchen island. 6 years with someone so ordinary. Had to play the long game, Derek replied, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Needed to establish the business, build the reputation. Can't have a messy personal life when you're courting Fortune 500 clients. But now? He gestured expansively. Now I'm established. Let her try to fight me. My lawyers will bury her. His lawyers. I almost laughed. Mitchell and Ross, the firm where I'd worked as a receptionist when we met. The same firm where I was now a named partner, though Derek had never bothered to ask about my career progression. Why would he? In his mind, I was still the quiet girl answering phones, organizing files, too intimidated by his MBA and his expensive suits to demand respect. When does she find out? Amber asked, settling onto the leather sofa that had cost $15,000. I'd picked it out myself, back when I still believed this marriage might survive on authenticity. Tonight, actually. Derek checked his Rolex, a $40,000 anniversary gift he assumed he'd bought for himself with his own money. She should be home from work soon. I figured I'd tell her while you're here. Show her how serious I am about moving forward. My coffee had gone cold. I set it down on the granite counter with deliberate care, watching the ripples spread across the dark surface. They still hadn't turned around. The late afternoon sun was streaming through those windows, probably half blinding them, while I stood in the relative shadow of the kitchen. This was it. The moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and preparing for over the past 8 months. Ever since my private investigator had first sent me the photos of Derek and Amber having lunch at that overpriced bistro downtown. 8 months of documentation. 8 months of watching my husband dismantle our life while thinking he was building his own. 8 months of playing the role of the oblivious wife. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. She's probably going to cry, Amber said, examining her manicured nails. Beg you to reconsider. Let her cry. Derek's voice had taken on a cruel edge I'd never heard before, or maybe I'd just been too naive to recognize it. She should have seen this coming. I mean, what did she think? That I'd stay with her forever out of some misplaced sense of loyalty? She was convenient when I needed someone stable, someone who wouldn't draw attention or cause problems. But I'm past that phase now. Convenient. The word hit harder than it should have. I'd built an empire on being underestimated, on letting people think I was less than I was. My father had taught me that lesson early. He'd been a janitor at a tech startup in the 90s, quietly buying stock while everyone ignored him, retiring at 45 a multimillionaire. Let them dismiss you, he'd said, then surprise them. I'd taken that philosophy and weaponized it. Started my first company at 22 with money I'd made from carefully invested birthday checks and summer jobs. By 25, I owned 4 commercial properties in Portland. By 30, I had a portfolio that would make most venture capitalists weep with envy. And through it all, I'd maintained the perfect disguise, the quiet receptionist who took the bus to work, who brought lunch from home, who never caused waves. I'd thought Derek was different. Thought maybe he'd fallen in love with who I actually was, not what I could give him. That had been my mistake. My test had failed, and I'd compounded the error by marrying him anyway, hoping he'd prove me wrong. What about her family? Amber asked now. Won't they make trouble? Derek laughed, harsh and sharp. Her family? Her dad died 5 years ago, left her nothing but debt. She's got a sister in Seattle who she barely talks to. No, baby. She's got nobody. That's what made her perfect. No complications, no mess to clean up. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her and disappear. My father hadn't left me debt. He'd left me a trust fund worth $8 million and a piece of advice I'd carved into my business philosophy. Revenge is best served with documentation. The debt Derek knew about had been strategic, an identity I'd crafted, a paper trail that told the story I wanted told. You're terrible, Amber giggled, but she didn't sound upset. She sounded delighted. I love it. So, she'll be homeless? Essentially. Derek pulled out his phone, checking something. I've already given notice on the apartment I helped her find last month, told the landlord she'd be vacating early. She thinks it's a surprise upgrade I'm planning. Can you believe that? She actually thinks I'm looking at bigger places for us. The apartment. The 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood that he'd shown me listings for, that he'd claimed to tour while I was at work. I'd been confused by his sudden interest in moving. We had 3,000 square feet here. But I'd played along, trusting him. Planning surprises of my own. That apartment building was mine too. I owned it through a property management company, one of 7 residential buildings in my portfolio. The landlord who'd supposedly received notice from Derek, my property manager, who'd immediately forwarded me the email along with a concerned message. We'd had a good laugh about it, actually, before she'd helped me start assembling the evidence I'd need. So tonight, you tell her it's over, Amber summarized, standing up and walking to Derek, wrapping her arms around his neck. She moves out, takes her little receptionist salary, and we live happily ever after in this gorgeous space. That's the plan. Derek kissed her, and I looked away. Not from hurt. That had faded months ago, but from the sheer audacity of it all. He was kissing another woman in my home, planning to evict me from my own property, all while wearing a watch I'd bought him. "Derek?" I said, finally stepping out of the shadows. The effect was immediate and gratifying. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents, Amber's face going crimson, Derek's eyes widening in shock that quickly morphed into something uglier. Calculation. "Sophia," he said, and I had to give him credit for how quickly he recovered. "You're home early." "Am I?" I stayed where I was, leaning against the counter with my arms crossed. "I don't think I am. I think I'm right on time." Amber was staring at me with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. Up close, she was younger than I'd thought, maybe 26, 27. An associate at Derek's consulting firm, according to my investigator. Fresh MBA from Stanford, hungry for success, willing to do whatever it took to climb the ladder. She reminded me of myself at that age, except I'd had ethics. "This is awkward," Derek said, not sounding awkward at all. He sounded relieved, like he'd been waiting for this moment and was glad to finally have it over with. "But actually, Sophia, maybe it's better this way. We need to talk." "Do we?" I stayed calm, channeling every poker game I'd ever played in private investment meetings, every negotiation where showing emotion would have cost me millions. "About what?" He had the audacity to look annoyed. "Don't be dense. You heard us. You know what's happening here." "Why don't you spell it out for me?" I suggested. "I'm just a receptionist, after all. Sometimes I need things explained slowly." Amber snorted, and Derek shot her a look before turning back to me. "Fine. You want it straight? I'm leaving you. Amber and I are together now. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served papers tomorrow. I'm giving you 2 weeks to clear your things out of here and find somewhere else to live." 2 weeks, I repeated. "That's generous." "I think it is, considering everything." Derek was warming to his role now, puffing up with self-importance. "Let's be honest, Sophia. This was never going to work long-term. We're in different leagues. I've built something real. A company. A reputation. A lifestyle. You're still answering phones at a law firm. It's time we both admitted that we want different things." "Different leagues," I said softly. "Different things. Interesting perspective." "It's not perspective, it's reality." He was getting aggressive now, probably because I wasn't crying or begging like he'd predicted. "I'm offering you a clean break, $10,000 to help you get settled somewhere else. All I ask is that you sign the papers quickly and don't make this difficult. $10,000 for 6 years of marriage, for the life I'd built that he was stealing, for everything I'd given him while pretending to have nothing." "And if I don't?" I asked. "Then my lawyers will make your life hell." Derek's voice hardened. "They'll drag this out for years. By the time we're done, you won't have enough money left for a security deposit on a studio apartment. Take the offer, Sophia. It's more than fair." Amber was watching this exchange with fascination, sipping champagne like she was at a particularly entertaining show. I wondered if she knew Derek had 3 credit cards in her name that he'd opened without her permission, running up debt to finance his lifestyle. Probably not. That was a surprise for later. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "There's nothing to think about." Derek pulled out his phone again, jabbing at the screen. "I'm texting you the settlement offer now. You have until Monday to sign. After that, the offer drops to 5,000. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't reach for it. "This is your home," Amber said suddenly, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I get that this must be hard. But Derek's right. You need to be realistic. You can't afford a place like this on your salary. Better to take what he's offering and move on." "My salary," I said. "Right. Sophia." Derek's tone had shifted to the one he used when explaining things to people he thought were stupid. Be smart about this. You came into this marriage with nothing. I'm letting you leave with something. That's fair. That's more than fair. I looked around the loft, at the exposed ductwork I'd had specially treated to prevent rust, at the custom shelving that held Derek's collection of first edition business books that I'd bought him, at the kitchen where I'd cooked 1,000 meals while he worked late, or claimed to be working late. You're right, I said finally. I should be realistic. Derek looked triumphant. Amber looked satisfied. Neither of them noticed my slight smile. I'll pack my things this weekend, I continued. But I want to talk to a lawyer first. Monday seems rushed. Fine, Derek said. You've got until next Friday. But the offer drops on Monday regardless. And Sophia? Don't try to fight this. You'll lose. I'm sure you're right, I said, turning back toward the kitchen. I'm going to make dinner. Will you two be staying, or should I only cook for one? The audacity of the question seemed to catch them off guard. Derek recovered first. We're going out. There's a new place in the West Hills we've been wanting to try. Of course there is. I pulled vegetables from the refrigerator. My refrigerator. Stocked with my money. Have fun. Don't worry about me. They left 20 minutes later, Derek's arm around Amber's waist as they headed for the elevator. I watched them go, waiting until I heard the telltale ding of the doors closing before I let my smile widen. Then I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to Jennifer Mitchell, senior partner at Mitchell & Ross and one of my closest friends since law school. She answered on the first ring. Did it happen? She asked. Just like we predicted, I said. He's giving me until next Friday to move out, offered me $10,000. Jennifer's laugh was sharp and delighted. Oh, this is going to be fun. Did he mention the apartment? Gave notice on it last month, told me he was planning a surprise. What a romantic. Jennifer's voice turned professional. Okay, I've got everything ready on our end. Divorce papers are filed? The real ones, not whatever garbage his lawyer is drafting. Property documentation is organized. Asset freeze goes into effect Monday morning. Perfect timing, I said. What about the business accounts? Those too. We've coordinated with the banks. Monday morning, Derek's going to wake up and discover that every account associated with Hartman Consulting is frozen pending divorce proceedings. Business payroll, operational expenses, his personal account, all locked. He's going to panic, I said. He should. Jennifer paused. Sophia, are you sure about all of this? I mean, I know you are, but it's going to get ugly. It was already ugly, I reminded her. I'm just making it honest. My second call was to Marcus Chen, my accountant and financial advisor for the past 12 years. Marcus had been the one to help me structure my holdings so carefully that even forensic accountants would have trouble tracing everything back to me. The portfolio restructuring is complete, Marcus said without preamble. All properties, investments, and business interests have been moved into the primary trust. Documentation is ironclad. I've also prepared the full accounting of funds you've provided to Derek over the years. The startup loan, the office rent subsidies, the client referrals. We're talking about $1.3 million in direct and indirect financial support. 1.3, I repeated. He thinks he built his business from the ground up. He built it on your foundation, Marcus corrected. And now he's going to pay for it. I've also got documentation showing the credit card fraud. 3 cards opened in Amber's name without her knowledge. Total debt of $47,000. You still want me to send that to her? Not yet, I said. Let her enjoy her victory for a few more days. She'll need the good memories. My third call was to David Rodriguez, the private investigator who'd been documenting Derek's affair for 8 months. David was ex-FBI, meticulous, and expensive. He was also worth every penny. I've got everything packaged up, David said. Photos, videos, financial records, communications. He's been sloppy, Sophia. Really sloppy. Using company resources for personal expenses, mixing business and personal accounts, falsifying expense reports. If you wanted to press criminal charges, you'd have a case. I don't want him in jail, I said. I want him destroyed. Then you're going to get your wish. David's voice held a note of satisfaction. I've also got something else you're going to want to see. Derek's been promising Amber that he's going to make her a partner in his firm after the divorce. Signed paperwork and everything. Partnership in a company he doesn't control, I said, understanding immediately. Exactly. The ownership structure of Hartman Consulting is complicated. Deliberately so, from what I understand. He thinks he's the majority owner, but the initial funding came from Highland Investment Group, I finished, which gives them significant equity and board control. And Highland Investment Group is owned by one of your holding companies, David confirmed. Derek signed away control when he was desperate for capital 3 years ago. He never bothered to read the fine print. I'd been desperate to help him back then. His business was struggling, and he'd been talking about giving up, about getting a regular job, about how he'd failed. I'd swooped in with a lifeline, structured through enough intermediaries that he'd never suspect. I'd thought I was saving our marriage by saving his dream. Instead, I'd just given him enough rope to hang himself with. Send everything to Jennifer, I told David. And David? Thank you. I know this wasn't a pleasant job. Are you kidding? David laughed. Watching entitled assholes get what's coming to them? This is why I got into the business. Good luck, Sophia. Enjoy the show. I hung up and stood in the empty loft, listening to the silence. Soon this place would be truly mine again, not hidden behind legal structures and shell companies, but openly, honestly mine. Derek would know the truth. Amber would know the truth. Everyone would know, but not yet. First, I had to play out this final scene. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder Jennifer had sent me months ago, when we first started planning for this possibility. Inside were dozens of documents. Property deeds, business filings, financial statements, incorporation papers. The true story of everything Derek thought he owned. The loft had been purchased 8 years ago through Mitchell Holdings, LLC, one of my companies, named after Jennifer as a private joke. Purchase price, $2.4 million, paid in cash. Current value, approximately $4.7 million, thanks to Portland's real estate boom. Derek had moved in 2 months after our wedding, believing we were renting from a friend of mine who'd given us a deal. In reality, he'd been living rent-free in my property for 6 years. I'd even sent him fake lease renewal notices every year, careful to maintain the illusion. His office space downtown? Owned by Hartman Property Management. Another one of mine. Market rate for that space was $8,000 a month. I charged him $3,000, and he'd bragged to his friends about what a great negotiator he was. The consulting business itself was the crown jewel of my deception. Highland Investment Group had provided the initial $250,000 in funding, taking a 45% equity stake in return. Derek owned 55%, or thought he did. What he didn't know was that Highland Investment Group was wholly owned by my primary trust, which made me the de facto majority owner of his company. Every client I'd referred to him, every deal I'd quietly facilitated, every success he'd celebrated as his own, all of it traced back to me. I'd built his dream business for him, let him think he was a self-made success, and now I was going to take it all apart piece by piece. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Staying at Amber's tonight, don't wait up. I texted back. Have fun. We'll talk this weekend about the divorce. His response came quickly. Good. Glad you're being reasonable about this. Reasonable. I laughed out loud in the empty loft, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. Derek had no idea what reasonable looked like. He was about to find out. I spent the weekend playing my role perfectly. I packed a bag slowly and obviously, making sure Derek noticed when he stopped by Saturday afternoon to pick up some clothes. I looked defeated, smaller somehow, letting my shoulders slump as I folded sweaters and arranged shoes in boxes. "This doesn't have to be hard," Derek said, watching me with what he probably thought was compassion. "You're going to be fine, Sophia. This is a fresh start for both of us." "I know," I said quietly. I thought we'd be together forever." "We were kids when we got married," he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice that I was taking this so well. "People change. I changed. It's nobody's fault." I looked up at him. This man I'd loved enough to trust, enough to test, enough to marry despite knowing he'd failed my little experiment. He was handsome in a conventional way. Strong jaw, expensive haircut, the kind of smile that worked well in client meetings. I'd been attracted to his ambition once, his drive. Now I just saw the hollowness beneath it. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Sure. Did you ever love me?" Derek had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Of course I did. I cared about you. We had good times. But you don't love me now." "No," he said simply. "I'm in love with Amber. I'm sorry, Sophia. I really am. But this is for the best." I nodded, biting my lip like I was holding back tears. "Okay, I understand." "You're handling this really well," Derek said, and he sounded almost proud. "I was worried you'd make this complicated." "What would be the point?" I asked. "You're right about everything. Different leagues, different lives. I should just accept it and move on." "Exactly." Derek smiled, relaxed now. "See? You're smarter than you give yourself credit for. Take the settlement. Find a nice apartment. Focus on your career. You'll be fine." He left after that, probably to report back to Amber that everything was going smoothly. I waited until I heard the elevator, then pulled out my phone and sent a group text to Jennifer, Marcus, and David. "It's showtime." Sunday evening, I got a call from my sister Hannah in Seattle. She was the only family member who knew the full truth about my financial situation, and she'd been following the Derek situation with the fervor of someone watching a particularly good thriller. "Are you really going through with this?" she asked. "Of course I am." "Sophia, he's going to lose everything. His business, his reputation, his money. Everything." "Yes," I said simply. "And you're okay with that?" I thought about the question carefully. Was I okay with destroying Derek's life? 6 months ago, the answer might have been no. 6 months ago, I'd still been hoping there was some explanation, some way to salvage what we'd had. But I'd heard him call me convenient. I'd watched him plan to render me homeless. I'd listened to him mock my career, my life, everything I actually was while praising the success I'd secretly given him. "He's not losing everything," I said finally. "He's just losing everything he stole from me." Hannah was quiet for a moment. "Dad would be proud of you, you know. This is exactly his kind of move." "I know." I smiled, thinking of my father's patient lessons in strategic thinking. "I wish he was here to see it." "He probably is, somewhere, eating popcorn and taking notes." After we hung up, I made one final check of everything. The documents were ready, the accounts were flagged, the lawyers were briefed. Tomorrow morning, Derek's world would start crumbling, and he wouldn't even see it coming. I slept well that night, better than I had in months. When I woke up Monday morning, I made myself a proper breakfast. Fresh ground coffee, eggs Benedict, the works. I was going to need my energy for what came next. At exactly 9 a.m., as I was finishing my second cup of coffee, my phone rang. Derek's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering, keeping my voice sleepy and confused. Hello? What the fuck did you do? Derek's voice was nearly a scream. What the fuck did you do, Sophia? Derek? What's wrong? It's early. My accounts are frozen. All of them. The business accounts, my personal account, everything. The bank says it's related to divorce proceedings, but that's impossible because we haven't even. He stopped abruptly. Unless. I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head, trying to understand how his quiet, defeated wife could have possibly filed for divorce before he did. I don't understand, I said, maintaining my confused, innocent act. What are you talking about? The divorce, Derek said slowly. You filed for divorce. Oh, I said. Yes, I did. I thought about what you said, and you're right. Different leagues. It's better to just move forward. You can't freeze my accounts, Derek shouted. That's my business. My money. Is it? I asked softly. Are you sure about that? The silence on the other end of the line was profound. I could practically feel his panic seeping through the phone, his mind racing through possibilities, trying to understand what was happening. What are you talking about? He said finally. I think you should call your lawyer, I suggested. They're probably trying to reach you right now. Oh, and Derek? You might want to sit down for this conversation. I have a feeling it's going to be enlightening. I hung up before he could respond, then silenced my phone as it immediately started ringing again. He could wait. He could panic. He could call his lawyers and his accountant and whoever else he thought might save him. None of them could help him now, because the truth was coming, inevitable as sunrise. And I was going to enjoy every single moment of Derek Hartman's fall from grace. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. He just called his lawyer. They're in emergency session. This is better than cable TV. I smiled and typed back. Just wait. The best part is still coming. Because Derek didn't know it yet, but freezing his accounts was just the opening move. The real revelation, the one that would shatter everything he thought he knew, was scheduled for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., when we'd all meet in Jennifer's conference room and I'd finally stop pretending to be someone I wasn't. I pulled out my laptop and opened the presentation I'd been working on for weeks. 47 slides, meticulously documenting every lie, every deception, every dollar I'd spent building the life Derek thought was his. By the time I was done explaining it to him, he'd understand exactly what he'd lost. Not just a wife, not just a marriage, but everything. The afternoon sun was streaming through the windows of the loft, painting everything in shades of gold. I poured myself another cup of coffee and settled onto the leather sofa, pulling up the live feed from the security cameras I'd had discreetly installed months ago. I wanted to see Derek's face when he came home and realized he couldn't get in. Because along with freezing the accounts, Jennifer had also filed an emergency motion to change the locks on all properties involved in the divorce proceedings. By now, Derek's key wouldn't work in the elevator that led to the loft. He'd have to call the building manager, who worked for my property management company, and explain why he needed access to an apartment that wasn't his. I settled in to wait, sipping my coffee and thinking about how my father would have loved this moment. Patience, he used to say. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but preparation is what makes it gourmet. Well, I'd prepared. I'd been patient. And now, finally, it was time to serve. The security camera alert pinged at 4:30 p.m., showing Derek storming into the building's lobby. I pulled up the feed on my laptop, maximizing the window so I could see every detail of his face. He looked terrible. Hair disheveled, tie loose, eyes wild with panic and rage. He jabbed at the elevator call button repeatedly, then swiped his keycard. The light stayed red. He swiped again. Still red. I watched him try 5 more times, his movements becoming more frantic, before he finally gave up and looked around the lobby. Tim, the building manager, appeared from his office. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could read Derek's body language. Aggressive, demanding, gesturing toward the elevator. Tim remained calm, professional, probably explaining that there had been some changes to the access protocols due to ongoing legal proceedings. Derek's face went from red to purple. He was shouting now, pointing at Tim, at the elevator, at the ceiling. Tim pulled out his phone, probably threatening to call security. Derek seemed to realize he was beaten, because he abruptly turned and stormed back out onto the street. My phone rang immediately. I answered on the first ring this time. "Let me in," Derek demanded. "Let me into my apartment right now." "It's not your apartment," I said calmly. "It never was." "What are you talking about? We've lived there for 6 years." "I've lived there for 8 years," I corrected. "You've been my guest for 6. But you're not my guest anymore, Derek. You made that very clear this weekend." "Sophia, this isn't funny. I have clothes in there, my laptop, my files." "Your belongings will be packed and delivered to you," I interrupted. "Jennifer's handling the logistics. You should receive everything by the end of the week." "Jennifer?" Derek's voice cracked slightly. "Your boss, Jennifer? What does she have to do with this?" I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Oh, Derek, there's so much you don't know. But you will. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Conference Room B at Mitchell and Ross. Be there. And bring whatever lawyer you've hired. It's time we had an honest conversation about our marriage." "I'm not playing these games," Derek said. "I'm getting my lawyer to file an emergency motion. You can't lock me out of my own home." "Your lawyer already tried," I said. "Judge Brennan denied the motion about an hour ago. Would you like to know why?" Silence. "Because I provided documentation proving ownership of the property," I continued. "Along with documentation proving ownership of several other properties you've been, let's call it using, over the years. The building where your office is located, for example. That was particularly interesting to Judge Brennan." "You're lying." But Derek's voice had lost its certainty. "Am I?" "Tell me, Derek, when you signed the lease for your office space 3 years ago, did you actually read the ownership documents? Or did you just assume that Hartman Property Management was some coincidental name similarity?" I heard him breathing on the other end of the line, rapid and shallow. "Tomorrow morning," I repeated. 10 a.m., don't be late." I hung up and immediately called Jennifer. "He's losing it," I reported. "Tried to get into the building, couldn't. Called me screaming." "Perfect." Jennifer sounded positively gleeful. "His lawyer called me about an hour ago. Some guy named Preston from a small firm in Beaverton. Nice enough, but way out of his depth." I don't think Derek told him the full story. "What did Preston say?" "Mostly blustered about improper account freezes and illegal lockouts. I sent him the property documentation and explained that you were simply securing your own assets pending divorce proceedings. He got very quiet after that." "Does Derek know about the business yet?" "Not yet. I wanted to save that for tomorrow's meeting. Let him have one last night thinking he at least has his company." I should have felt guilty about the cruelty of it. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of pretending, tired of playing small, tired of watching the man I'd married transform into someone I didn't recognize. "Jennifer," I said quietly, "thank you for all of this. I know it's complicated." "Stop," she interrupted. "You're one of my best friends, and you're also the smartest person I know. Watching you hide that for 6 years has been painful. Tomorrow you get to stop hiding. That's not complicated. That's justice." After we hung up, I ordered Thai food from my favorite place, the one Derek always said was too expensive, and ate it while watching the sunset through those massive windows. The loft felt different already. lighter somehow, like it was shedding the weight of Derek's presence. I wondered where he was sleeping tonight. Probably at Amber's, spinning some version of events where I was the crazy ex-wife, freezing accounts out of spite, refusing to accept reality. I wondered if she believed him, or if some part of her was starting to suspect that things weren't quite as Derek had described them. She'd find out soon enough. They both would. I spent the evening packing the last of Derek's belongings: clothes, toiletries, the expensive watch I'd bought him, his collection of business books. Everything was cataloged carefully, photographed for the record, packed into boxes labeled with neat handwriting. I was going to give him back every single thing that was actually his. It wasn't going to fill very many boxes. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it instead. "This is Amber. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, considering my options. I could ignore it. I could block the number. Or I could do something more interesting. I typed back, "Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Mitchell and Ross, Conference Room B. You're welcome to attend." The response came quickly. "What is this about?" "The truth," I replied. "About Derek, about his business, about everything he's told you. Come if you want answers. Don't come if you prefer comfortable lies." She didn't respond after that. I didn't know if she'd show up or not. But either way, tomorrow was going to be illuminating. I slept in the master bedroom that night, stretched out across the entire king-size bed, no longer confined to my usual side. The sheets were soft, expensive. I'd bought them from a boutique in Italy during a business trip Derek didn't know I'd taken. Everything in this room, everything in this loft, every single detail had been chosen by me, paid for by me, maintained by me. And tomorrow, Derek would finally understand that. I woke up at 6 a.m., alert and energized. This was it, the day I'd been building toward for 8 months. I dressed carefully, choosing a suit I'd bought 2 years ago but never worn around Derek. It was designer, perfectly tailored, the kind of outfit that commanded respect in boardrooms and courtrooms. I paired it with heels that added 3 inches to my height and jewelry that was understated but clearly expensive. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I'd almost forgotten, the woman I was before I started playing small, before I decided to test Derek's loyalty by hiding who I really was. That woman was powerful, successful, brilliant. That woman didn't apologize for taking up space. It was time to let her out again. I arrived at Mitchell and Ross at 9:30, giving myself time to review everything one last time with Jennifer. The conference room was already set up, presentation queued up on the large screen, documents organized in neat folders, coffee and water arranged on the credenza. "Ready?" Jennifer asked. "I've been ready for 6 years," I replied. At 9:55, Derek arrived with his lawyer, a nervous-looking man in his 50s, who kept glancing at his client with increasing concern. Derek had changed clothes but still looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. "What is this?" he demanded as soon as he saw me. "What the hell is going on, Sophia?" "Sit down, Mr. Hartman," Jennifer said coldly. "We have a lot to discuss." Derek sat, his lawyer, Preston, beside him. They both looked confused, defensive, ready for a fight. At exactly 10 a.m., there was a knock on the conference room door. I'd been watching Derek's face, so I saw his expression when Amber walked in, looking uncertain and scared. "What is she doing here?" Derek half rose from his chair. "Amber, you don't need to." "She asked to be here," I said calmly. I thought she deserved to know the truth, too. "Sit down, Derek." Something in my voice must have penetrated, because Derek sat. Amber took a seat at the far end of the table, as far from Derek as possible. "Shall we begin?" Jennifer opened the first folder. We're here today to discuss the divorce proceedings between Sophia Chen and Derek Hartman, specifically regarding the division of assets and— Division of assets? Derek interrupted. There are no assets to divide. I've already explained this. I'm offering her a settlement out of generosity, but legally. Legally, I said, speaking for the first time since they'd all sat down. You own exactly 55% of a failing consulting business that's currently underwater by approximately $200,000. Everything else— the loft, the office space, the car you drive, the lifestyle you've been living— belongs to me. The silence that followed was profound. Derek stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Preston looked confused. Amber's eyes had gone very wide. That's insane, Derek said finally. You're a receptionist. You don't have— I'm a named partner at this firm, I interrupted, gesturing around the conference room. I have been for 3 years. Before that, I was a senior associate for 4 years. And before I ever started working here, I was already a millionaire several times over, thanks to property investments and business ventures you never bothered to ask me about. Derek's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. The loft where we've been living? I continued. I bought it 8 years ago for $2.4 million. Cash. You've been living rent-free in my property for your entire marriage. The office where your business is located? I own that building too, through one of my property management companies. I've been charging you about a third of market rate because I thought I was supporting your dream. I brought up the first slide of my presentation, a property deed with my name clearly listed as the owner. The car you drive? I clicked to the next slide. Technically mine, registered under one of my LLCs. The furniture, the art, the electronics, all mine. The watch you're wearing right now? Anniversary gift I bought with my own money, though you seem to think you'd purchased it for yourself. Derek was shaking his head, but I could see reality beginning to dawn in his eyes. And the business, I said, clicking to the next series of slides. Highland Investment Group provided your initial funding, $250,000 in exchange for 45% equity. Do you remember that, Derek? He nodded numbly. Highland Investment Group is wholly owned by my primary trust, which means I own 45% of your business. Add in the fact that you've been operating at a loss for the past 18 months, hemorrhaging money on expensive dinners, luxury travel, and gifts for your mistress, all charged to company accounts, and your 55% stake is essentially worthless. I clicked through several more slides, each one showing documentation of Derek's business expenditures. Dinners at 5-star restaurants, weekend trips to wine country, a diamond bracelet that I'd never seen, presumably now adorning Amber's wrist. You've been stealing from your own company, I said flatly. From our company. Using corporate funds for personal expenses, falsifying reports to hide the losses. I have documentation of everything. 18 months of fraud and mismanagement. Preston, Derek's lawyer, had gone pale. Mr. Hartman, is this true? Derek didn't answer. He was staring at the screen like it might suddenly rearrange itself into a different reality. But that's not even the best part, I continued, warming to my task now. The months of preparation, the careful documentation, the patient waiting, it was all paying off. Derek, do you remember when you promised Amber that you'd make her a partner in your company after our divorce? Derek's head snapped toward Amber, who was now staring at him with dawning horror. You were very confident about that, I continued. Signed paperwork and everything according to my sources. Of course, there's a small problem with that promise. I clicked to the next slide, the corporate structure of Hartman Consulting, clearly showing the ownership breakdown and the board control provisions. You don't actually have the authority to make anyone a partner, I said. Highland Investment Group controls the board, which means I control the board. Any major business decisions, including partnership offers, require board approval, which, of course, you're not going to get. Amber made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Derek turned to her, reaching out, but she pulled away violently. "You lied to me," she said. "About everything." "I didn't lie," Derek said desperately. "I didn't know. Sophia, this is insane. You couldn't have. There's no way you. There's no way I what, Derek?" I leaned forward, letting him see the steel beneath my surface calm. "There's no way I could be successful. There's no way I could own property. There's no way I could be smarter than you." "You were a receptionist," he whispered. "I was a law student paying my way through school," I corrected. "Working as a receptionist during the day, attending classes at night, building my investment portfolio on weekends. I graduated top of my class. I passed the bar on my first attempt, and I built a multi-million-dollar real estate empire before I turned 30. I was all of those things before I met you, Derek. I just decided to see if you could love me without knowing about them." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you do that?" "Because I'd been burned before," I said simply. 3 times, by men who saw my money before they saw me. So when I met you, I decided to try something different. I thought maybe if you fell in love with who I was instead of what I had, it might actually be real. I stood up, walking to the window and looking out at the Portland skyline. From here, I could see 4 buildings I owned, including the one where Derek's office was located. "For a while, I thought it was working," I continued. "You seemed supportive. You encouraged me to pursue my career. You said all the right things about partnership and equality. So I married you, and I kept waiting for the right moment to tell you the truth." I turned back to face him. But then I noticed something. You were more comfortable when you thought you were the successful one. When you thought I was the one who needed your help, your protection, your financial support. You liked having power over me. And the more successful your business became, with my money, my connections, my help, the more you looked down on the woman you thought I was. Derek was crying now, silent tears running down his face. I felt nothing looking at him. Whatever love I'd had for this man had died somewhere between his cruel laughter and his plans to render me homeless. "So I decided to see how far you'd take it," I said. "How cruel you could be to someone you thought was beneath you. And Derek? You exceeded my worst expectations." I clicked to the final slide, a transcript of the conversation I'd overheard in the loft, every cruel word documented and time-stamped. "You called me convenient," I said quietly. "You planned to evict me from my own home. You offered me $10,000 for 6 years of my life. You brought your mistress into our bedroom and mocked me for being unemployable." "Sophia," Derek's voice cracked. "I'm not finished." My voice was sharp now, cutting. "You told Amber I'd be homeless. You gave away my apartment. The one I own, by the way. You've been planning this for months, Derek. Months of lying to my face while plotting to throw me away like garbage." Jennifer cleared her throat. "Ms. Chen, shall we discuss the settlement terms?" "Yes." I sat back down, folding my hands on the table. "Let's discuss what you're actually getting in this divorce, Derek." I slid a folder across the table. Derek opened it with shaking hands, and I watched his face as he read through the documents. "You'll retain your 55% stake in Hartman Consulting," I began. "What's left of it anyway? You'll also keep your personal bank account, currently containing about $3,000, I believe, and your personal vehicle, which is a 2018 Honda that you've been keeping at Amber's place." Derek looked up at me, confused. "My car is a BMW. Your car is a Honda. The BMW is mine. It's parked in my garage under my loft that you're not allowed to enter." He looked back down at the papers, his hands trembling. "You'll have 2 weeks to find new office space," I continued. "Since you can no longer afford the rent at your current location, even at the subsidized rate I was charging you, I'd suggest somewhere significantly cheaper. My clients will be notified of your new address once you have one. I pulled out another folder. Oh, and about those clients? I've done some digging into how you actually acquired them. Turns out about 60% of them were referred through my business network, though you never knew it. I've already reached out to several of them to explain the situation. Most of them are interested in continuing their consulting relationships, just not with you. Derek's face had gone from red to white to gray. He looked like he might be sick. As for personal assets, I continued relentlessly, you'll keep your clothing, your toiletries, your collection of business books, and any gifts that were genuinely given to you with no strings attached. Everything else, the furniture, the art, the electronics, the watch, the jewelry, belongs to me. It's all been inventoried and photographed. This is... Derek shook his head. This is vindictive. You're being vindictive. No, I said calmly. I'm being accurate. I'm taking back what was always mine. You're the one who tried to steal from me, Derek. I'm just preventing the theft. What about the settlement you offered me? He said desperately. $10,000? What about it? You're giving me nothing. How am I supposed to live? I smiled, cold and sharp. I don't know, Derek. How was I supposed to live when you planned to evict me with nothing? Figure it out. I'm sure a smart, self-made businessman like yourself will manage. Preston, who had been frantically taking notes throughout this entire exchange, finally spoke up. Ms. Chen, my client may have legal recourse here. This division of assets seems extremely one-sided. Does it? Jennifer pulled out yet another folder, this one several inches thick. Because from where I'm sitting, Ms. Chen is being extraordinarily generous. She's not pursuing criminal charges for the business fraud. She's not suing for return of the $1.3 million in direct and indirect financial support she provided over the years. She's not even claiming spousal support, despite being entitled to it based on Mr. Hartman's business income, or what would be his business income if he hadn't been stealing from it. Preston's mouth snapped shut. My client, Jennifer continued, her voice taking on a lecturing tone, is simply reclaiming her own property and dissolving a marriage that your client wanted to end. If you'd like to take this to trial, we're more than prepared. We have 8 months of documentation, dozens of witnesses, and enough evidence of fraud to keep you in court for years. Or Mr. Hartman can sign the papers, accept reality, and move on with his life. She slid a thick stack of documents across the table. Your choice, she said pleasantly, but I'd decide quickly. The longer this drags out, the more Ms. Chen's legal fees accumulate. And per the prenuptial agreement Mr. Hartman signed before the wedding, you did read that, didn't you, Preston? He's responsible for all legal fees associated with the divorce if he's found to be at fault. There was no prenup, Derek said. There was, I corrected. You just didn't realize what you were signing. Remember that stack of papers right before the wedding? Insurance forms you thought they were? Derek's face confirmed that he did remember. Standard liability waivers, I continued, so we could get married at that venue. Except buried in the middle was a very simple, very clear prenuptial agreement stating that all assets owned prior to the marriage remain separate property, and that the party found at fault in any divorce proceedings is responsible for all associated legal costs. That's... Derek looked at his lawyer helplessly. That can't be legal. It's completely legal, Preston said quietly, and I could hear the defeat in his voice. If you signed it, it's binding. So here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up and gathering my folders. You're going to sign these papers, Derek. You're going to take your 55% of a failing business and your Honda Civic and your $3,000, and you're going to walk away. You're going to leave me alone, never contact me again, and try to rebuild your life from the ashes of your own arrogance. I paused at the door. Or you can fight me. You can drag this out, rack up legal fees you can't afford, and eventually lose anyway. But by the time we're done, you won't even have the Honda. Your choice. I walked out, leaving them all sitting in that conference room. Jennifer would handle the rest. The signatures, the paperwork, the final details of dismantling Derek's fantasy. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. It was done. After 6 years of hiding, 8 months of preparation, and countless hours of documentation, it was finally done. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. He's signing. Amber left about 2 minutes after you did. She looked absolutely devastated. I felt a small twinge of sympathy for Amber. She'd been a pawn in Derek's game, just like I had been. The difference was, I'd chosen to play the game. She hadn't even known the rules. Another text came through, this one from Marcus. Business accounts unfrozen. Everything's in order. Highland Investment Group is formally dissolving partnership with Hartman Consulting effective end of month. Per the separation agreement, we're taking our full equity stake as payment for exit. Derek gets to keep his business name and whatever clients don't jump ship. Which meant Derek would keep his 55% of nothing, essentially. Without Highland's backing, without the clients I'd referred, without the office space and the infrastructure I'd provided, Hartman Consulting would collapse within 6 months. He'd have to start over from scratch, just like he'd planned to make me do. My phone rang. Hannah. Did you do it? She asked. It's done, I confirmed. How do you feel? I considered the question. How did I feel? Not triumphant exactly, not vindicated, mostly just tired. Tired and sad and ready to move forward. I feel free, I said finally. For the first time in 6 years, I feel free. Good. Hannah's voice was fierce. You were never meant to play small, Sophia. Time to remind the world who you actually are. After we hung up, I walked out of Mitchell and Ross and into the bright Portland morning. The sun was shining, the city was alive with possibility, and somewhere behind me, Derek was signing papers that would end our marriage and his delusions in one stroke. I thought about going back to the loft, but I didn't want to be there when Derek's belongings were delivered. Instead, I walked to my favorite coffee shop, ordered an obscenely expensive latte, and sat by the window, watching people pass by on the street. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jennifer. It's official. Divorce papers signed. He walked out without saying a word. Congratulations, you're free. Free. The word felt strange and wonderful. I was free to stop pretending, free to be myself, free to build a life that didn't require hiding or testing or playing roles. I pulled out my laptop and opened my calendar. I had a property acquisition meeting tomorrow, a board meeting on Thursday, and a consultation with a startup founder on Friday. My real life, the one I'd been living in the shadows, could finally come into the light. A shadow fell across my table. I looked up to find Amber standing there, her eyes red-rimmed, her expensive dress wrinkled. "Can I sit?" she asked. I gestured to the empty chair. She sat, folding her hands on the table like a student called to the principal's office. "I didn't know," she said finally, "about any of it. He told me, Derek told me you were just a receptionist, that you had nothing, that he'd built everything himself." I know. He promised me partnership in his company, showed me paperwork and everything. I know that too. Amber laughed bitterly. I'm an idiot. I destroyed a marriage for a man who was lying about everything. You didn't destroy anything, I said. Derek did that all on his own. You were just the tool he used. She looked up at me, surprised. You're not angry with me? Was I? I examined my feelings carefully. Anger, yes, but it was a distant thing, muted by months of careful planning and the satisfaction of justice served. And beneath it, something like pity. I'm angry, I admitted. But mostly at Derek. He lied to both of us, Amber. He made us both believe things that weren't true. You thought you were trading up to a successful businessman. I thought I'd married someone who could love me for who I was, not what I had. What you have is incredible, Amber said softly. I've been sitting here trying to process it. You own buildings. You're a partner at a major law firm. You've been playing him this whole time. Not playing, I corrected. Testing. There's a difference. I wanted to know if he could love me without the money. Turns out, he couldn't love me at all. Amber was quiet for a long moment. Then, the credit cards. I raised an eyebrow. There are credit cards in my name I didn't open. That's what you meant in the meeting, isn't it? When you mentioned fraud? I pulled out my phone and forwarded her the documentation Marcus had compiled. 3 cards, 47,000 in debt, all used for luxury purchases, probably trying to maintain the lifestyle he could no longer afford once his business started failing. Amber read through the emails, her face going from pale to green. He ruined my credit. My credit score is going to be destroyed. Not if you file a police report for identity fraud, I said. I've already compiled all the evidence. Take it to the police, file charges, and the credit card companies will remove the debt from your record. Why would you help me? Amber asked. After everything? Because Derek hurt you too, I said simply, and because I understand what it's like to be deceived by someone you trusted. You made mistakes, Amber, but you don't deserve to have your financial future destroyed because of them. She started crying then, quiet tears that ran down her cheeks and dripped onto the table. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. For the affair. For what I said in your apartment. For believing him when he called you ordinary. I'm not ordinary, I said, and there was no arrogance in it, just statement of fact. I never was. Derek just needed me to be. Amber nodded, wiping her eyes. What happens now? To him, I mean? He has his business. What's left of it? He'll try to rebuild, probably fail, maybe eventually succeed if he learns from this. That's up to him. And you? I go back to being myself, I said. No more hiding, no more tests. Just me. Amber stood up, hesitating like she wanted to say something else. Finally, thank you. For the credit card information, for not destroying me along with him. You're welcome, I said. And Amber? Find someone who sees your value without needing to diminish someone else. You deserve better than Derek. She nodded and left, and I was alone again with my laptop and my expensive coffee, and my freedom. Over the next week, I watched from a distance as Derek's world continued to crumble. Clients called Jennifer's office asking for references to new consultants. Amber filed a police report and pressed charges for identity fraud. The business account hemorrhaged what little money remained as vendors demanded payment on overdue invoices. I felt no satisfaction in his suffering, but I felt no guilt either. This was simply consequence meeting action, cause and effect playing out according to natural law. On Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the conference room confrontation, I returned to the loft for the first time since Derek had signed the papers. His belongings were gone, picked up by a moving company I'd hired, delivered to whatever address he'd provided. The space felt empty but clean, ready for a fresh start. I walked through the rooms slowly, reclaiming them. The living room where he'd mocked me would become my private office. The bedroom we'd shared would be redecorated entirely. The kitchen would finally be used for the kind of cooking I loved, elaborate, experimental, joyful. This was my home. It had always been my home. But now it felt like it again. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I signed a lease today. Small place in Gresham. Starting over. You won. Sophia. I stared at Derek's message for a long moment before typing back. This wasn't about winning. This was about truth. Good luck with your fresh start. I blocked his number after that. Whatever happened to Derek Hartman next was no longer my concern. That evening, I invited Hannah down from Seattle. We ordered too much sushi, drank expensive wine, and sat on the floor of my empty loft, laughing about everything and nothing. You did it, Hannah said, raising her glass. You really did it. Dad would be proud, I replied, clicking my glass against hers. Dad would be taking notes for his next reincarnation, Hannah corrected. This was masterclass level revenge. Not revenge, I said. Justice. What's the difference? I thought about that. Revenge is about making someone suffer. Justice is about making things right. Hannah considered this. Did you make things right? I made things true, I said. That's close enough. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lights of Portland spread out below us. Somewhere in this city, Derek was unpacking boxes in a small apartment, trying to understand how his perfect plan had fallen apart. Somewhere, Amber was rebuilding her credit and her life. Somewhere, 100 other stories were unfolding, full of their own betrayals and triumphs. But here, in this moment, in my home with my sister, I was simply myself. No disguises, no tests, no games, just Sophia Chen, property owner, law partner, self-made millionaire, and finally, free. What now? Hannah asked. I smiled. Now? Now I stop hiding. Now I build the life I actually want instead of the one I thought I should want. Now I figure out who Sophia Chen is when she's not pretending to be someone else. That sounds terrifying, Hannah said. Doesn't it? I agreed. I can't wait. We stayed up late that night, making plans and dreaming about futures. By the time Hannah left Sunday morning, I had a list of changes I wanted to make. Redecorate the loft, maybe buy that building downtown I'd been eyeing, definitely hire more women at my investment firm, possibly start mentoring young female entrepreneurs. The world felt wide open, full of possibility. Monday morning, I walked into Mitchell & Ross with my head held high. No more quiet receptionist costume, no more hiding behind careful neutrality. I was Sophia Chen, named partner, and it was time everyone knew it. Jennifer met me at the door to my office. You're glowing. I'm free, I corrected. It's different. Derek called this morning, she said. Wanted to know if there was any way to renegotiate the settlement. What did you tell him? I told him you were in depositions all day and couldn't be reached. Then I blocked his number. I laughed. Good call. The rest of the day was busy with actual work. Client meetings, contract reviews, a conference call about a property acquisition. Normal life, the kind I'd been living secretly for years while Derek thought I was filing documents and answering phones. Around 3 p.m., my assistant knocked on my door. Ms. Chen? There's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Who? He wouldn't give a name. Just said to tell you it's about the Portland properties. I felt a slight chill. Derek wouldn't be stupid enough to show up here, would he? Send him in. But the man who walked through my door wasn't Derek. He was mid-50s, well-dressed, carrying a briefcase that had seen better days. He looked vaguely familiar, like someone I might have passed in a courtroom or at a property auction. Ms. Chen, he said, extending his hand. My name is Robert Hartman. I believe you were recently married to my son. Monday morning, Marcus packed for Chicago with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. I watched from the bedroom doorway as he folded clothes, selected ties, checked his toiletries. You have everything? I asked, playing my role. Think so. He zipped his suitcase. I'll call you when I land. He didn't call, but Robert Chen did, 3 hours later. Subject arrived O'Hare at 11:47 a.m. Female companion confirmed as Sienna Blake. Currently checking into the Peninsula Hotel. One room, king suite. Shall I continue? Everything, I confirmed. I want documentation of their entire trip. Over the next 3 days, my phone filled with reports. Photographs of Marcus and Sienna walking through Chicago, hands intertwined. Romantic dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. Shopping on Michigan Avenue where Marcus bought her jewelry. More jewelry I'd never received. Cozy mornings with room service delivered to their suite. Each image felt like a small cut, but I saved them all. Organized them. Dated them. Built my case with clinical precision. Thursday evening, Marcus texted, landing at 8 p.m. Don't wait up, going straight to the office to catch up on work. He arrived home after midnight, smelling of airport and perfume that wasn't mine. He kissed my forehead, the same absent gesture, and fell asleep within minutes. I lay awake beside him, thinking about the woman he'd just left in Chicago, about the life he was planning without me, about the reckoning that was coming. Friday morning, I woke to find Marcus already gone. A note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting. See you tonight. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Are you ready? Because I think it's about to happen. She was right. At 2:37 p.m., while I was reviewing tenant applications for one of my rental properties, an email appeared in my inbox. From Marcus's attorney, Gerald Fitzpatrick of Fitzpatrick and Associates. Subject: Dissolution of marriage. Marcus Chen and Olivia Chen. My hands were steady as I opened it. The email was brief, professional, informing me that Marcus Chen was initiating divorce proceedings. Attached were preliminary documents outlining his proposed settlement. I downloaded everything and forwarded it immediately to Patricia. Then I opened the documents and began reading. Marcus was claiming irreconcilable differences. He proposed a 50-50 split of marital assets, which he listed as our house, valued at $850,000, joint savings accounts, approximately $45,000, and his retirement accounts, $230,000. He wanted to keep his business, which he valued at $3.2 million. He proposed no alimony for either party, claiming we both had earning potential. He listed my assets as minimal personal property, potential future inheritance from family, and income from property management work estimated at $60,000 annually. He listed his assets as Chen Architectural Group, his car, his personal investment accounts, the house he wanted to split, mine, the building where his business operated, mine, the car he drove, leased through my LLC. I read through everything twice, feeling a strange calm settle over me. This was it. The moment where Marcus's fiction met my reality. I called Patricia. I have it, I said. He filed. Send me everything. I'll draft our response. This is going to be educational for Mr. Chen. How long until we respond? Standard is 30 days, but I can have something ready in 2 weeks. I want time to make it comprehensive. He's going to learn exactly who he married. I spent the weekend acting normally, not mentioning the divorce papers. Marcus came home Friday night with flowers, guilt flowers, and suggested we order takeout and watch a movie. We sat on the couch together, eating Thai food, pretending we were still us. I've been thinking, Marcus said during a commercial break. Maybe we should take a vacation. Just us. Reconnect. I looked at him, this man I'd loved for 11 years, and saw a stranger. A stranger who was planning to divorce me while suggesting romantic getaways. A stranger who'd spent the week in Chicago with his mistress while sending me gift baskets. That sounds nice, I said. When were you thinking? Maybe next month? I could clear my schedule. Next month, when the divorce would be finalized, when he'd be free to move Sienna into his building. Let's talk about it soon, I said, returning my attention to the movie. He squeezed my hand and I let him, feeling nothing. 2 weeks later, Patricia called. It's ready. Are you prepared for what happens next? Yes. Once we file this response, everything changes. Marcus will know everything. There's no going back. I know. File it. She did. That afternoon, Gerald Fitzpatrick received a 47-page response to his client's divorce petition. Attached were property deeds, trust documents, LLC ownership papers, financial statements, and a complete accounting of my assets. Also included, Robert Chen's surveillance report from Chicago, complete with photographs, the misdirected text from Siena, the voicemail recording. A timeline of the affair constructed from credit card statements and travel records. Patricia's cover letter was masterful. Dear Mr. Fitzpatrick, we are in receipt of your client's petition for dissolution of marriage. However, we note several significant errors in his financial disclosures that require immediate correction. Contrary to Mr. Chen's filings, the marital residence is not a joint asset. The property is held in the Olivia Chen Family Trust, established prior to marriage. Mr. Marcus Chen appears on the mortgage but not on the deed. He has no ownership interest. Additionally, Mr. Chen lists his business, Chen Architectural Group, as his primary asset valued at $3.2 million. However, his business operates in leased space within the Meridian Building, owned by Maven Properties LLC. We have enclosed documentation showing that Maven Properties LLC is wholly owned by our client, Ms. Olivia Chen. In fact, Ms. Chen has provided below-market lease terms to Mr. Chen's business for the past 5 years, representing an estimated $340,000 in foregone rental income. This could be considered a substantial gift to the marital estate, or alternatively, a business subsidy that Mr. Chen has failed to acknowledge. Furthermore, Ms. Chen owns 17 properties with a combined value of approximately $43 million, generating annual net income of $2.8 million. These were all acquired prior to marriage or through inheritance, maintained in separate legal entities, and never commingled with marital funds. We also note that Mr. Chen's petition fails to disclose his ongoing extramarital relationship with Ms. Sienna Blake, which has involved significant marital funds spent on gifts, travel, and entertainment. We have enclosed comprehensive documentation. In light of these corrections, we propose the following settlement. Misag. Chen retains all premarital and separate property, including all real estate holdings, the marital residence, and all associated business entities. Mr. Chen retains Chen Architectural Group and all associated business assets, subject to the existing lease agreement with Maven Properties LLC. The lease for Chen Architectural Group's office space will continue under current terms for a period of 12 months, after which it will be renegotiated at market rates or terminated at Ms. Chen's sole discretion. Mr. Chen will reimburse Ms. Chen for 50% of all marital funds spent on his extramarital relationship, estimated at $67,000. No alimony will be sought by either party. Mr. Han Kies Chen will publicly acknowledge in the divorce settlement that he was unaware of his wife's property holdings during the marriage, and that his professional success was built partially on below-market lease terms provided by his wife through her company. This settlement is generous given the circumstances. We await your response. Sincerely, Patricia Morrison, Esq. I read it 3 times, each time feeling more satisfied with how precisely it captured the situation. Patricia called me that evening. Fitzpatrick just contacted me. He's in shock. He had no idea about any of this. He's requesting a meeting with his client before responding. How long? He asked for 72 hours. I gave him 48. Those 48 hours were the longest of my life. Marcus didn't come home Tuesday night. Or Wednesday. His attorney had clearly told him everything, and he was processing it somewhere else. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Marcus. We need to talk, he said. His voice was flat, empty. Okay. I'm at the office, can you come here? The office. In my building. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I dressed carefully. Business casual, professional. Armor for what was coming. The Meridian building rose before me, glass and steel gleaming in the afternoon sun. My building. My investment. My property. I'd walked past it hundreds of times, sometimes with Marcus, never telling him the truth. Security in the lobby nodded to me. They knew me as the owner's representative, the one who conducted quarterly inspections. I took the elevator to the 8th floor. Chen Architectural Group occupied the entire level. Glass walls, modern furniture, open workspace design. Marcus's vision, executed beautifully. His assistant Jennifer looked up as I entered. "Ms. Chen, go right in. He's expecting you." Marcus's private office overlooked the city. He stood at the window, hands in pockets, looking out at the skyline he'd helped shape with his designs. "Nice view," I said from the doorway. He turned. He looked terrible, exhausted, eyes red, suit rumpled. "You own the building?" "Yes." "You've always owned it?" "Since before we met." He laughed, bitter and hollow. "The Meridian, my building, my pride, and it's yours." "It's always been mine." "The house too?" "Yes." "How many properties?" 17. He sat down heavily in his desk chair. 17. And I thought you managed apartments for other people. I let you think that. Why? The question burst out of him, raw and desperate. Why hide it? Why lie? I stepped into the office, closing the door behind me. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct your assumptions. And I did it because I wanted you to love me for me, not for my money. That's insane. Is it? 3 men before you saw me as a meal ticket. I wanted something real. So you tested me? For 11 years? No. For the first few years, I just maintained the status quo. I was going to tell you eventually. But then you started calling this place my building. Started talking about buying it. Started building your identity around success you thought you'd achieved independently. And I realized you needed that fiction more than you needed the truth. Marcus put his head in his hands. I've been paying rent to my wife for 5 years. Below market rent. I've been subsidizing your business. Why? Because I loved you. Because I wanted you to succeed. Because I believed in your talent. Loved. Past tense. I didn't answer. The silence stretched between us. "Sienna," he said finally, "you know about her." "I've known for 7 months." His head snapped up. 7 months? And you said nothing? "I was waiting to see what you'd do. Turns out you were planning to divorce me and make me homeless." He had the grace to look ashamed. "That voicemail. The pocket dial." "Yes. Very informative. Olivia, He stopped, started again. "I don't even know what to say. The woman I thought I married doesn't exist. You've been living a completely different life this entire time." "No. I've been living my life honestly. You've been living in a fantasy where you were the successful one, where I was the dependent wife, where you were in control. The fantasy was all yours, Marcus. You made me look like a fool. You did that yourself. I just provided the rope." He stood, anger flashing. "This whole time, you were judging me, looking down on me from your secret empire, watching me struggle. I was helping you struggle less. The lease terms I gave you saved you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you have any idea what market rate for this space would be? You should have told me. When? When you started calling it your building? When you started telling people you were about to buy it? When you started having an affair because I wasn't successful enough for you?" That landed. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. "That's not why." "Isn't it? The Sienna in those photos looks like success. Young, beautiful, polished. Everything a successful man deserves, right?" Not a struggling property manager who can't even land a real job. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. He turned back to the window. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. You were always so calm, so content. Nothing ever bothered you. You never pushed me to earn more, or be more. And I thought it meant you didn't care, that you'd settled for whatever I could provide. So you found someone who demanded more? Sienna challenges me. She has expectations. She makes me want to be better. I made you better by giving you the foundation to succeed. She makes you feel better about yourself. There's a difference. He was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? You read Patricia's settlement proposal. It's generous, more than generous. I'm not trying to destroy you, Marcus. I'm just correcting the narrative. The acknowledgement clause, the part where I have to admit publicly that I didn't know about your assets, that's designed to humiliate me. That's designed to tell the truth. My reputation, your reputation, is built on lies, on a building you don't own, on success subsidized by a wife you dismissed. Maybe it's time people knew the truth. He turned to face me fully. I can't sign that. It'll make me look like an idiot in front of clients, colleagues, everyone. Then we go to trial, and I bring up everything. The affair, the funds you spent on Sienna, the pocket dial where you called your wife homeless, the text messages, the Chicago trip. All of it becomes public record. His face went pale. You wouldn't. I would. I'd rather not. But I will, if necessary. We stared at each other across his desk, two people who'd shared a life now negotiating its ending. The lease? He said finally. 12 months at current rates? Then you can kick me out? Then we renegotiate at market rates, like any other landlord and tenant. And if I can't afford market rates? Then you find different space, like any other tenant. That'll destroy my business. Location is everything in architecture. Clients expect. Then you'll figure it out. You're talented, Marcus. You can build something new. You've done it before. With your help, he said bitterly. Apparently. Yes. With my help. Which you never acknowledged. Never appreciated. Never even noticed. He sat down again, deflated. I signed the papers this morning. Fitzpatrick has them. I agreed to your terms. I felt something release in my chest. Relief. Finality. Thank you. I don't have a choice. You have all the cards. You've always had all the cards. I had options. You had choices. You chose Sienna. You chose to dismiss me. You chose to plan my homelessness while living in my house. Those were your choices, Marcus. Are you going to marry again? The question surprised me. I don't know. Maybe. If I find someone who loves me, whether I'm rich or poor. That's what I thought I was doing. No. You loved a version of me that didn't threaten you. A version that made you feel successful by comparison. The real me? You never knew her. He nodded slowly, acknowledging truth he couldn't deny. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I did love you. Maybe not the way you needed, but I did. I know. I loved you too. That's why this hurts. I turned toward the door. Olivia? I looked back. The pendant. The one I saw you wearing sometimes. The jade one. What about it? It's beautiful. I never asked where it came from. My father. He gave it to me when I bought my first property. He said it would remind me to be patient and wise. He'd be proud of you. Yes, I said. He would. I left him there in his office, in my building, and took the elevator down to the lobby. Stepped out into the afternoon sunshine and looked up at the Meridian building, truly seeing it for the first time as completely mine. The divorce was finalized 8 weeks later. Quick and clean, all things considered. Marcus signed everything, including the acknowledgement that Patricia had insisted on. The document became part of public record, filed with the county clerk, accessible to anyone who cared to look. It caused exactly the stir Marcus had feared. Trade publications picked it up. Successful architect discovers wife owned his building all along. Some framed it as romantic, a wife secretly supporting her husband's dreams. Others saw it as cautionary tale about assumption and ego. Marcus's clients mostly stayed loyal, but the story followed him. Chen Architectural Group relocated after the 12 months were up. Not because I raised the rent unreasonably, but because Marcus couldn't bear working in a building that represented his blindness. He moved to a smaller space across town, downsized his operations, rebuilt. I heard he married Sienna 6 months after our divorce finalized. They seem happy in the photos my sister occasionally shows me from social media. Good for them. The house sold for well above market value, strong seller's market, and I bought a penthouse in one of my own buildings downtown. Smaller than the house, but entirely mine without the weight of memories. I dated cautiously, told potential partners the truth about my financial situation on the second or third date. Lost a few who were intimidated. Found a few more who saw it as an opportunity to use me. Stayed patient. Then I met David at a property management conference in Seattle. He owned a small chain of boutique hotels, built them himself from the ground up. We talked about foundation issues and tenant relations and zoning laws. He made me laugh. He never asked what I was worth. On our 5th date, I told him anyway. Showed him my portfolio. Explained the Maven Properties structure, the whole thing. He'd listened carefully, then said, "That's impressive. Really impressive. But can I ask you something? Anything? Do you want kids? Because I do, and that's more important to me than your net worth." I'd laughed until I cried. Real laughter. The kind I hadn't experienced in years. We've been together 2 years now, living separately but talking about merging lives. He knows everything. I know everything. We're building something based on truth, not fiction. I still own the Meridian building. Still manage my 17 properties, though the portfolio has grown to 23 now. I hired a full-time property manager to handle day-to-day operations, freeing me to focus on acquisitions and strategy. Maven Properties expanded into commercial developments. I'm building a mixed-use complex on the east side, combining retail, office, and residential space. It's challenging and exciting and entirely mine. My mother asks occasionally if I regret hiding my assets from Marcus. I tell her the truth. I regret the marriage falling apart, but I don't regret protecting myself. My father taught me to be patient and wise. I was both. Linda says I should write a book. Lessons in Strategic Marriage Planning. She jokes. I tell her I'm too busy actually living to write about it. But sometimes, late at night in my penthouse with city lights spread below me, I think about that voicemail. About Marcus's casual cruelty, planning my homelessness while standing in a building I owned. I think about how close I came to being destroyed by his dismissal, his affair, his plans. And then I remember, I was never in danger. I had 17 properties, soon to be 23. I had Maven Properties. I had trusts and LLCs and careful planning. I had my father's jade pendant and his wisdom. I had patience, and I had power. Even when Marcus thought I had neither. The building still stands downtown, glass and steel reaching toward the sky. The Meridian. My first major commercial acquisition. The foundation of everything I built afterward. Marcus called it his building for 5 years, but the deed always had one name on it. Olivia Chen. And that made all the difference. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Marcus eventually told Sienna the full story. How his ex-wife had owned everything, supported everything, been everything he'd dismissed. Sienna apparently found it romantic at first. Secret benefactor wife. Until she realized what it meant about Marcus's judgment and honesty. They're still together, but the dynamic shifted. She handles their finances now, keeps careful track of assets, makes sure she knows exactly what they own and what they don't. Smart woman. As for me, I'm done hiding, done testing, done protecting myself through secrecy. David knows my net worth to the dollar, knows my father's story and my strategy, knows about Maven Properties and the Meridian building and everything I built. And he loves me anyway. Or maybe because of it? Either way, it's real. That's what I learned from Marcus. You can't build a real relationship on fiction, no matter how carefully constructed. Eventually, the truth emerges. The only question is whether the foundation can withstand it. Mine could. His couldn't. I still drive past the Meridian building sometimes, watching new tenants come and go. Marcus's former space house is a law firm now. They pay market rate, appreciate the location, and know exactly who their landlord is. It's better that way. Clearer. Honest. I wear my father's jade pendant every day now. Visible, not hidden. A reminder of patience, wisdom, and the power of building something real. Property is patience, he taught me. You watch. You wait. And eventually, you win. I watched. I waited. And in the end, I won everything that mattered. My self-respect, my assets, my truth, and the freedom to build a future on solid ground. The deed was always in my name. And that, it turns out, was exactly what I needed. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.